Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Alistair Welsh. I'm a senior solution consultant at NextThink, and I'm going to be your host today for the next hour while we talk with customers and a NextThink partner to talk about hybrid working and putting the employee first. I do want to just start off by sharing that unfortunately Barb from our customer has had an urgent family matter to attend to, so unfortunately isn't able to join us live today. So later on in the session we do have a recording with Barb, but do want to just call that out to you. She passes on her apologies. But everything else we're talking about today is going to be live. So we're really looking forward to making this as interactive as we can and to getting questions from you. And just to call out that there are going to be 3 vouchers that we'll be giving away if you ask questions. So please do find the Q&A section on your screen and post any questions as we are going through. Now, before I get started, I would like to just hand over to Scott. Scott's the APAC Sales Director for NextThink, just to say a few words, introduce himself, and really let you know why we're hosting this session here today. Over to you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Alistair. And thank you all for joining today, this presentation hosted by Vertec and NextThink. Firstly, I just would like to congratulate Vertec for being named Partner of the Year in 2021 with NextThink. We've done quite a bit of business and helped a lot of customers start their employee experience journey. I'd also like to say a big thanks from Barb. Although she wasn't able to attend live today, she's been gracious enough to help record the session, which we'll play here today, and she's quite active on our NextThink communities also. I'd also like to say thanks to Origin also from a business in signing off on the actual presentation. And I hope you get a lot out of today's session, as we've got both Alistair and Jason who are very capable in this area. So on that note, I'll hand back to Alistair. Thanks for joining, and I hope you get a lot out of today's session. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Scott. So I'm going to kick things off and just spend a few minutes talking to you about the idea of digital experience and why this matters, particularly as organizations work through having a blended workforce of people working flexibly from the office and from home. So the first question I really like to start with is, why is this important? Well, it really is a fundamental benefit to a business in terms of focusing on their employee experience. And there's a really great quote that I have up on the screen that you can read. But basically, when you have happy, engaged, satisfied employees, they're going to make sure you have happy customers. And happy customers are really fundamentally good for business. And we have some data here, and you can look online and find this. This is public information, but there's 3 really critical takeaways, in my opinion, as to why we should be focusing on our employee experience more. Firstly, twice the innovation, double the customer satisfaction, and really, when all is said and done, we want to make sure that we are good for business. So 25% greater profitability. So the question of whether or not we should be doing this really should be a no-brainer. But what are the, why are organizations looking to NextThink? How is NextThink helping organizations? Well, we're trying to bridge this gap, this expectation gap that we know employees have. Ask yourself, when you're delivering a technology service to your users, someone asks you, are you doing a good job? You'll be looking at your SLAs, you'll be looking at your uptime, you'll be looking at your service desk ticket count. How quickly am I fixing tickets? How many tickets do I have? But if you ask a user, an employee, how they feel, very often you hear a very different answer. You hear about hardware that isn't fit for purpose. You hear about applications that are slow or not responsive. You start to hear about issues in your environment that really didn't show up in any of your traditional metrics. So this is really what Nexthink is trying to do. We are trying to bridge that gap between the traditional technology service delivery, but really understanding what that looks like from an employee point of view. And this has become so much more critical as we've moved to the hybrid workforce. For many organizations, if you ask them how they provide support to their users, the answer is often, well, you need to come in to the office, and when you're in the office, we can maybe connect to your device, or that is where our tech support is based. But the reality is that's not the way we're working today, certainly not in a hybrid workforce. So the question is, how do you extend your support capability to support users who are working from home? How do you understand how your employees are feeling when they're working from home and potentially disconnected from existing support processes and that informal support that we often had when we would look at the person sitting next to us and ask them for help? So Nexthink really is trying to bridge that gap and provide you the ability to understand how your employees are working, both in the office and from home, and to give you the ability to support them equally, both in the office and from home. So what I'd like to do now is just talk a little bit about how Nexthink goes about doing that. So first and foremost, Nexthink Experience. Nexthink Experience is a fully SaaS-based solution. So all of the data that we capture is streamed to the Nexthink cloud. And there you'll see that the Experience platform has a number of different components and a Nexthink library. And the Nexthink library is really an accelerator for organizations to look at the use cases that they may have and to deliver value in a very rapid, timely manner. So what I'd like to do is just start to break this down a little bit and give you a sense of what these different components are. So the Nexthink platform is all about understanding how your users are using technology, understanding where there are potential issues in the environment. As an example, maybe devices are taking a long time to boot up. Maybe we're seeing users that have low disk space. Maybe we're seeing users who are having lots of network disconnections or low bandwidth that is impacting their ability to do video conferencing sessions from home. So the analyze component of Nexthink is really that underlying data analysis piece. It allows you to discover and understand what is going on inside your organization effectively in real time. Once we have this real-time data, the question is, what do I do with that data? And ACT is our automation capability. And to give a very simple example, you can imagine where a user potentially hasn't rebooted their machine for a long time. So let's use that information and then prompt the user to be rebooting their machine. And we can do that reboot and trigger that reboot with the ACT automation component of Nexthink. But the engage piece is that user interaction. So this is understanding how I can interact with my users in a targeted fashion. So in that example of telling an employee that they need to reboot their device, that I can actually prompt them and say, look, we've proactively identified that you haven't rebooted your device. We would recommend for the best experience that you reboot at your convenience. So giving this softer side and this data-driven approach and this user engagement that you can apply to users both in the corporate office but equally at home. And we're very aware that a lot of this data has a lot of value, particularly in service management. And many of our organizations, many of the customers that we work with are looking to try and improve the quality of their service management. So Nexthink has a number of connectors into ServiceNow where we can put ticket information, put details about devices into ServiceNow. So this ability to integrate and use Nextlink data in third-party tools as a fundamental capability to help you achieve value from Nextlink. But what do we do with all of this data? Well, Nextlink has really been leading in this space around building up what we call our digital experience score. And what we heard from our customers is that we have an awful lot of data. In fact, sometimes it's too much data. And our customers have been saying, we need to be able to make more sense of this data. And the digital experience score is a way to go about that. We look at data across multiple different dimensions, and you can see them on the screen there. We can look at the underlying hardware of a device. We can look at specific critical business applications. We can look at your web browser and your browser interactions that users have. But we can also include in that employee sentiment. So understanding how users are feeling. We take all of these different data points and we build them up into our digital experience score. It's about hiding the complexity of the data and giving you real insights into understanding the experience that your users are having. And then we can look at that digital experience score and we can say, what is the digital experience score when someone is in the office versus working from home? Or we can look at that across potentially different office locations where we can say, does one office perform better than another office? Or we work with many organizations that leverage VDI or some kind of virtualization capability. And you can also map this across your virtualization approach to say, is someone connecting in remotely through VDI having a better or a worse experience than someone in the office? So the digital experience score hides the complexity, but gives you the ability to understand what that means to your users. So what does this mean for a hybrid workforce? Well, absolutely, as I was just saying, DEX gives you visibility, gives you real-time visibility to understand the experience that all your users are having, both in the office, but crucially at home. It gives you the ability to monitor performance and productivity, and again, to compare that. And over the course of the last 12, 18 months with COVID, Nextlink has worked with many organizations who have faced challenges around their video conferencing solutions. And we've been able to help them identify what is driving the frustration that users are having when they're working from home using these corporate tools by understanding the network connection, by understanding the device, by providing the ability to provide support and engagement to users when they're working at home, rather than forcing them to come into the office. And that really then ties nicely into the final piece here, which is our engagement and our feedback. So through Engage, we can do really targeted engagement to users. So when we see someone is working from home and they experience a particular type of issue, we can target them in real time to understand what's gone on and to get their sentiment and their feeling about how they're working and if they need additional support or potentially additional education in terms of using the tools that are made available to them. So I've given you a really quick snapshot of the Nextlink experience platform. Hopefully you'll remember those terms because later on we have Jason giving a demo for us. But I think at this point, Jason, it'd be really good to hand over to you. Maybe just you can introduce yourself and you can tell everyone a little bit about Vertec.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alistair. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our session today. Just a bit of background about Vertec. We are an Australian-owned and operated small to medium enterprise, and we specialise in workplace technology transformation. We're all about enabling businesses to do more effective ways of working, supporting their staff, regardless of where they're working. So we focus in particular on end-user experience around the Nextlink platform, but we also work around robotic process automation and continuous testing. So allowing companies to rationalise their procedures to be more cost-effective, more productive, and ensuring that delivering the best experience possible for their staff and their clients. So to do this, we use best-of-breed technologies at every stage of the digital lifecycle. It can be from when we're rolling out devices, analysing fleets of devices, using Nextlink to work out are the fleet of devices you have the right fit for your organisation? Are they going to run the applications that you need? To also ensuring that once you actually roll out your devices, are they continuing to perform the way they should? And then do your staff have the right tools they need to be able to do their job? We're headquartered on the Gold Coast in Queensland, but we also have staff all around the country, across Sydney, Canberra, Brisbane, Melbourne and Perth. And we work across the APAC region. So we have clients across Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Thailand. We work with various different sectors, government, manufacturing, mining and resources, just to name a few. So around the NextThink platform, where we work is across multiple areas. Firstly of all, deployment and implementation. So we work with customers to implement NextThink in their environment, run workshops to identify what's the best fit for their environment, what processes do they currently employ, can we look at monitoring and changing those processes to fit the organization better so they can move from that reactive to proactive model with their IT. Across our team, we've deployed over 100,000 endpoints of NextThink, so we have quite a broad range of experience, and it's across all different sectors as well. Once we've implemented NextThink, we'll ensure our customers are trained up in NextThink, how to use the platform to its maximum, what's the capabilities, and how can they map their processes around NextThink so they can be more efficient. How can they potentially move staff from being purely just service desk answering tickets to being more strategic and more productive. We also run managed services for our clients. So some clients may decide they don't have the capability or the workforce to be able to analyze the data that NextThink provides. So we'll assist our clients with that. And over the last 12 months, we've managed over 10,000 endpoints across the APAC region. So we'll do things like analyze the data that NextThink collects, identify what are the major problems with the customer's environment. Do they have particular crashing applications? What can we do to resolve those? Do they have particular offices that aren't performing as well as others, and why is that the case? So it's allowing them to be more proactive rather than waiting for staff to report tickets. IT can actually get on the front foot, fix these issues before users even report them, and allows those staff to be more productive and have a happier and more engaged workforce. We'll also work with our clients on maintaining and administering their NextThink infrastructure. We also work in some other areas as well around Windows 10, Windows 11 readiness, ensuring that customers have the right devices and the right applications to be able to migrate to Windows 10 or Windows 11. And we also work around the Microsoft space around SOEs and infrastructure assessment. Back to you, Alistair.
Great. Look, thanks for that, Jason. That's great. So, yeah, we're going to switch over now to what was going to be our panel discussion, but as I said, unfortunately, Barb wasn't able to join us. So what we're going to do now is replay a video that we recorded with Barb a couple of days ago, just so we could make sure that you all got to hear her content. We felt it was very important that we had a customer. So we hope that you'll enjoy this video session. So Michelle, let's roll that video discussion. And we are really fortunate to have Barb from Origin Energy with us to share some of her experience and some of the value that they've been getting from NextThink. I know, Barb, you'll do a much better job than me of introducing yourself. So please maybe take a couple of minutes and just help people understand your role. Yeah, over to you.
Hi all, I'm Barb Martoe and I'm the product owner for Workplace Technologies at Origin Energy. I actually started my role the first day of lockdown for COVID back on March 2020, when Origin was about to go live with the NextThink capability. So starting a role on the first day of lockdown was a fantastic challenge, I have to say. And throughout my career, it's all been about rising to the challenge and delivering what needs to get done or be done for both the business and for our customers. So I'm going to leverage a quote by Richard Branson in saying that if you do well for your users, they will do well for your customers. So through 25 years in technology, from a range of roles, starting off as an accountant and then going through doing technical roles and project and program management, risk and security, I've had great exposure to a number of industries and a number of user groups and customers. So for me, the focus is about making sure that you are doing well for your customers. And in order to do that, you really have to make sure that the employees of the organization have all the tools that they need to do well for your organization so they can be their best selves for your customers. So for me, lots of different roles and different organizations coming into Origin at a really challenging global time and stepping up to the challenge on how do we best serve all our Australian-based customers and our global-based customers who are locked down and in a state of flux, I have to say. That was me and is me.
Great, thank you, Barb. It's really great to understand the experience you've got as well. It gives us a lot of context. So I know we have a little bit of content prepared, so we'll be moving into one or two slides that you've kindly prepared for us. Maybe I could start off the discussion then with you, Barb. So, earlier on I spoke a little bit about the NextThink Experience platform and some of the capabilities that we have in that platform. But look, I think hearing from you as the customer is far more valuable than hearing any marketing slides. So I'd really love to hear from you in terms of the capabilities that you've been leveraging and really what's been providing the most value to you as a customer. So if you can share anything around that would really be wonderful.
Okay, more than happy to, Alistair. So we initially implemented NextThink in order to improve our service management objectives. We needed to reduce our mean time to resolve calls for our users and wanted to implement a fix on first contact. So making sure that when a user had a problem with their laptop, desktop endpoint, shall we say, that when they called the service desk, they got timely resolution. They got a better outcome, a quicker outcome. So the initial benefits that were proposed were we had 3 remote actions with the service desk that were embedded, and we also set up some operational dashboards so we could see, as an engineering group, end user compute, we could see what was going on with our workforce endpoints. One of the things we did initially set up was 2 dashboards that tracked the digital experience both in the office and remotely, so we could ensure that our users were having similar experiences while everyone transitioned to working from home, which led us to some thinking, some outside of the box thinking. Alistair, if you want to jump to the next slide. One of the things we found when we were using the capability was that we could create more insights and dashboards that gave us better insight to what the endpoint was doing. We were a little bit ahead of the curve on this one, in that we've created 226 remote actions across our service desk, our tech hub, level 3 engineering and security groups, so that we can baseline our security, that we can monitor our endpoints better, and it gives us the endpoints information so that we know if there's a problem with an application, problem with a model of laptop. When we introduced during COVID a new primary collaboration tool, we found that the information, the insights that NextThink gave us meant that we could target a specific model of laptop to upgrade its RAM that it had in it, because the lower level of RAM in those devices created jitter and latency, which meant Teams calls weren't connecting. And there's nothing more frustrating as a user working from home, forced to work from home, sharing their bandwidth with the rest of the family who were schooling from home, etc., trying to do their job and the laptop not working well for them. So it meant that we could target our upgrade of those devices and give them a better experience. It meant that we could, via remote actions, also undertake a little bit of background healing of the devices. So clearing caches, helping with resetting some of the settings like hibernation so that the device would self-heal overnight, giving us targeted upgrades and patches for capabilities like Ysoft, etc. Not that you really want to patch that capability when you're remote working because it's more office-based, but the insights that the tool gave us meant that we had the ability to manage our endpoints in a targeted way, which gave a better experience. One of the other things that we got from this was leveraging the NextThink capability with the pop-up capability. We had a couple of major incidents and we wanted to be able to communicate quickly, immediately with the endpoints to advise our users what was going on and, in a couple of cases, what we needed them to do. one of the incidents that happened was a global incident. It's pretty well known in 2020. Office 365 had a little bit of a glitch globally with sign-on. With the NextThink pop-up capability, we could then communicate with everybody instantly saying, don't log off, do not disconnect. We used salient language that they could understand instantly and follow that instruction so those users could keep on working. It was a really great way to provide a little bit of continuity to a difficult situation. And what we've done after that is incorporate that capability into our standard major incident management process as part of the communication piece. So we found great use for that capability outside its usual or its intended purpose, I suppose. But moving forward, what we got from that was a pretty quick lesson in how we needed to communicate with people. So with that, we learned to change our language. A lot of users, when they're getting emails and they're getting emails from IT, lots of emails from IT, they stop reading or don't necessarily understand what you're trying to say to them. So with the insights that the NextThink capability gave us and the learnings from the pop-up language, we learned to change our language with our user base. We introduced a lot more plain language, a little bit of fun into that, but learned to better engage with our user base, which improves their experience. So all round, it led to quite a learning experience for us and how we would engage with the user base. We also learned from the insights and optimization pieces what our fleet was doing for us, to us, with us. So the fleet being an aged fleet with COVID, we were a little bit behind on the refresh. What happened is that we could target models for more targeted uplift to achieve a better outcome. And as part of our remote actions, the 226 we had as at earlier this year, it gave us a significant amount of automation hours, which is a business value, a very tangible business value. And what we've done with that since is created an algorithm based on the psychology of the automation and converted that into actual man hours so that we can have a different conversation with the business on how we now want to add value next. That's what we've done so far.
Well, that is fabulous. It's a great segue into what I want to ask you next. But I just want to say those were really incredible examples that you gave. So I really appreciate you sharing those. I mean, I've got to say that, you know, I've heard similar stories from some of our other customers, particularly around the major incident notifications, you know, really reducing the number of calls that come into a service desk. But you know, that example of telling users in real time, don't log off from your devices. I think that's a really fabulous example. And your targeted upgrades as well, you know, where organizations are trying to understand what is impacting their user experience, to be able to identify and then target, you know, where the spend goes to make the most improvement to users. Those are wonderful examples. Thank you very much. As I mean, just now you mentioned, where do you go next? I mean, NextThink is obviously developing our platform all the time. You know, we're making a lot of investments in terms of our AI and our machine learnings. But, you know, I'd really be interested, as you've been using NextThink for a number of years now, you know, maybe what are your plans for NextThink as an organization now? Is there anything that you can share there?
So we have incorporated NextThink's roadmap as it's evolved into our own roadmap so that we can keep that value going for the business. A lot of businesses, when you implement capability, you then start to use it and they'll go for longevity. They'll go, well, what's next? Where are we now providing a step change in the value to keep an organization invested in the tool set that it has, because things evolve? So for NextThink, what we're looking to do is we also work with NextThink. Thank you, NextThink, to try and evolve and drive the tool set as well, where we can provide insights back to NextThink on where we think there is a potential capability uplift. So working together on that. But what we're also doing is taking the Nextlink product roadmap and working through implementing it against our own. So the Experience Optimization Hub, how do we then take the next level of that and create a step change in value that we provide into the organisation, whether it be in terms of improved user experience, improved operational delivery or operational experience, or in terms of business value, which does tend to come down to dollars. But at the end of the day, running a business is about money. But in terms of how you achieve that, your employees actively engaging with your customers, it's a win-win. So for us, we're looking to uplift our operational reporting in line with some of the new capability that Nextlink's bringing out. We are adopting the application experience because so far we've been focusing on the endpoint, and the application experience we've considered, but actual insights into the application experience use we hadn't been doing. So we're looking to leverage that new capability to a similar or more outside of the box way than we have with the initial capability that we had. We are going to leverage further insights on the targeted refresh, and that's not just now with the actual endpoint itself, but what's on the endpoint. We are optimizing our MOE. So in lots of organizations, you have so many agents that are operational on your endpoint that you need to understand where it is being impacted, where it adds latency. Then we're all returning to the office on and off in a hybrid way. So what we want to understand is what is that delta difference, and now that we've adjusted our endpoints for working from home, what is the experience back into the office? And then with the insights, the additional insights that are being provided by the new capability from Nextlink, that gives us different conversations with our networks teams, with our SaaS providers, with those people who deliver services to the endpoints, regardless of whether they're internal or external, to make sure that we're still optimizing that device for our user base. While we've improved our user experience, we're not resting on our laurels. We now want to make sure that our extensively geographically dispersed workforce, who will be working in a hybrid model moving forward, we want to make sure that we are still delivering the best outcome for them so that they can deliver the best outcome for our customers.
Great, thanks, Barb. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. You were sort of talking there about sort of an ongoing plan, and we hear that from a lot of our customers about sort of embedding Nextlink into their improvement plans, and this being a living, breathing, really a continuous improvement type approach to getting that value moving forward. So those are great. Thank you very much. I did notice just now you were talking about that comparison of experience between in the office and your hybrid workers. And I know, in fact, you and I have spoken previously around the governance framework in the Nextlink user group that we have. So maybe changing tack a little bit, but I think it'd be really interesting to understand, how the governance framework has come in and how you've gone and sort of got organizational buy-in for Nextlink, and in that sort of hybrid working, how you've got feedback potentially from across the organization. So I know a lot of people would be interested to hear about that. So if you can talk to that at all, again, that would be really valuable.
So going live with the Nextlink capability, one of the things that I have leveraged in the past in other roles and other organizations is a governance framework for a capability. And it's setting up a pyramid structure, which means that while you've got your user base and your users of the capability, also it meant that you could have a dedicated change and development group. And by dedicated, I don't mean a single entity of full-time users. I've drawn on part-time users from across different teams to form a change and development group. And on top of that, a working party of stakeholders representative of the business, IT business and our technology and our our IT technology customer base. So business partners, business technology partners, and IT representation in a working party where we illustrate what we have done, what we are doing, and what they need us to do. And by them being involved in the direction of the use of the capability, there's better adoption of it. And when you go to them to make a suggestion that maybe we could enable this or go in this direction, it's a collaboration, and that gives the buy-in. They're part of the journey, they're part of the decision making. And then we have dedicated, experienced change and development technologists who enact that and set us up for success, so that we get the insights further from the user feedback and the reporting that we get, and we can see if the decision that we've made and the solution change that we've enacted gives us the value that we thought. So by making sure that there was that framework in place, we managed to get our stakeholders actively engaged on initially a fortnightly, then a monthly basis, and make them part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, I know you and I have spoken about this, and I could really pick up on your passion around that, and I think it's really essential. And you mentioned it just then about that stakeholder engagement and the buy-in from your stakeholders, and I know you've done a fabulous job there. So well done. So Barb, that was really insightful. Thank you very much. Really some great examples there in terms of how you've got value from Nextlink. Look, I'm really excited to be working with you and supporting you as you roll out new features and we bring new capabilities to the platform. So really looking forward to what the next 12 months will bring as well. And I think probably at that point it's a good time for us to think about moving over to our demo. And I know Jason is going to be giving a demonstration, but for everyone on the call, please do think about any questions that you may have. You can put those in the chat, so that after the demo we can come back to any questions that you may have. But Barb, look, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you creating that content, and look forward to taking any questions with you at the end of the call if we can. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So that concludes the pre-recorded portion of our journey. And as I said, Barb did pass on her apologies for not being able to join us live today. But as I just said, I think this is a really good time now for us to actually see some of the product in action, and we have Jason on hand to do that. So Jason, what I'll do, I'll hand over to you now to do the demo, and look, if there are any points that Barb is talking about, if there's any experience you've got from the work you're doing at Vertec, then please feel free to share those with our attendees now as well. So you've got around 15 minutes now, Jason, so I'll hand over to you.
No worries, Alistair. Yeah, just on Barb's discussion there, the issue we see with a lot of our clients is particularly around IT issues and downtime. So that's really adds to frustration for the employees and impacts their bottom line. So we have seen an independent report which was released last year, where employees will report to their service desk on average around 2 technical issues a week, and that averages around 24 minutes downtime per issue. What we have found though is a lot of those employees only report half the issues that they experience, so that effectively doubles that downtime to 1.5 hours per week per employee. When you think you've got 1,000 employees, that creates a massive dent in the bottom line, even more so for a larger company. Another issue that we see is the move to cloud-based applications. IT no longer has the control or visibility of the performance of these applications. Your staff might be experiencing issues with these apps, even though all your monitoring systems say that you've got green lights, everything's working okay. Then you throw into the mix staff working from home or remotely, and IT has even less control over the employee's experience. Things like slow internet connections, traffic routing via the corporate VPN unnecessarily, a poor Wi-Fi signal, all of those can impact the experience of a remote worker and affect their productivity. So by using remote actions in the Engage campaigns, Nextlink allows us to identify what's actually happening with the digital experience of those employees, whether they're office or remotely based workers, and we can then communicate to the employees how to improve their digital experience. So one example is we work with our managed services clients. When they have staff working from home, we can see have they got a poor Wi-Fi signal. If they do, we can target them with an Engage campaign to ask them to move closer to the router or access point, and that should improve their performance. Really important at the moment with a lot of people running collaboration tools, performing meetings remotely. If they don't have a working Teams or WebEx client, that can really impact the employee's productivity, create frustration, and overall result in poor engagement with the employer.
Jason, sorry to interrupt you there. I think you might need to move a little bit closer to your mic. I'm not sure if anyone else is having problems, but maybe just double check how close you are. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Okay, so I'll jump into my demo now. Okay, so I've jumped into the Nextlink portal. The Nextlink portal is the dashboarding and reporting interface for Nextlink. Allows us to view trends and establish baselines across the environment. So we can see as the environment changes, does the user experience improve or degrade? The page we're on right now is the Experience Optimization Hub. And this is based around our digital experience score that Alistair spoke about earlier. So this is a score out of 10 where we can quantify how the digital experience is for our employees. In this case, you can see we have an overall score of 7.3. That score is made up of a number of subscores, being the device, the productivity applications, and the business applications. Those are known as the hard metrics that we collect from devices, and they're all around things like how long does the device take to start up, how long does it take to log on, do we have application crashes? On from there, we have the employee sentiment, which is considered a soft metric, and that's gathered by using the Engage campaigns to get feedback from our employees. So we can ask them questions like, how is their IT experience? Do they have the right access to the applications that they need? Do they have any issues at all? And we use all that data that we collect from those hard and soft metrics to make up our overall digital experience score. So that way we can quantify the performance of each of those different areas and work out what are those areas that we need to improve. So here in the Experience Optimization Hub, you can see we have numerous different widgets here on the screen, and we can see what the experience is based on the scores of the users. Do they have a good, an average, or a frustrating experience? And you can see how many devices are impacted. Each of these different widgets allows us to click on them, and we can then filter on that data to find out in more detail what's actually impacting these people. So when I click on frustrating, you can see I then get a breakdown by region, Americas, Middle East, Europe, and this can all be mapped to the structure of your organization. So it doesn't have to be that way. It could be within Australia. We can also look at things like what's the working style of these people? Do they work in the office or are they remotely connected? And then what's their digital experience score based on that? We can then identify what do we need to focus on first. So rather than being that traditional reactive model, waiting for users to report a ticket to the service desk, we can be proactive, use the data that we collect from Nextlink to identify what do we need to try to improve first. You also see down the right-hand side, we get a list of issues. So Nextlink will actually identify what are the issues across the environment that are causing the most pain to our employees. If we go and improve these, how can we actually improve the digital experience score and the experience for our employees? So in this case, you can see our highest issue in this environment is around device logon duration. We have over 1,200 devices impacted. If we can improve that, it will actually increase our score by around 2.2%. So it's really a focus of continuous improvement, identifying what are the issues, what do we need to focus on, implement the fix, and then monitor that via Nextlink. So not only do we have what the issues are, we also have lists of possible fixes. And so we can run through these. We don't actually have to do our traditional troubleshooting methods of going to Google or speaking to our colleagues. We can come into here and identify what's actually causing these problems. So the first one would be, if it's taking a long time to log on, it could be because I have a large number of applications starting up automatically when I log in. So we can have a look at this. We can click on the playbooks, and they'll actually give us pre-canned investigations that we can run, and it will give us a breakdown of what could be causing problems. So in this case, I'll just launch this investigation. And what this will do is this is looking at the data we've collected from the devices to identify how long do they take to log on, what applications are starting up automatically, and what's their digital experience score as well. You can see here I get a breakdown of things like logon duration. I can find out what devices are taking the logins to log on. And I can also add in other attributes into my investigation here. So I may want to find out what are the applications that are starting automatically when I log on. And you can see here, my remote actions, I've got information around what applications are starting up, so I can add those in, and it will give me feedback as to what could be a potential issue. So if I have things in my SOE where it might be loading up automatically, things like Adobe updated services, we would traditionally centrally deploy updates from our IT department. We wouldn't get each individual device go out updating those from the internet. So we could remove these update tools, which are adding to the startup time of a device, and that way increase the experience for our employees, reduce that login duration that they're having at the moment. So it's a matter of going through these playbooks step by step, and we should As we implement these fixes, identify what the problems are and then improve that digital experience. Another might be around Teams. So we can see in this environment, we have a high number of Teams crashes. With Teams continually updating, we're trying to identify which devices are impacted. Do we know, has there been a new update gone out recently to Teams, and how many devices are impacted by that? So what we can actually do is have a look at our playbook here and find out, first of all, have there been any new versions deployed over the last week? Normally with this, because devices will go out automatically and check for updates from Microsoft, we don't know how many devices have the update. And so we can see here, there has been a new version deployed recently, and it's affecting around, well, it's been 178 crashes over that last 7-day period. So if we knew there was a problematic version that's going out, we might find a way, let's temporarily hold those updates so that way we're not going to impact additional staff. We can also look into a version breakdown. So I can have a look via this Experience Optimization Hub and work out what versions you have crashes. So I'll click on the investigation here. And this gives me a list of the versions deployed across my fleet, and we can identify how many versions have crashes or not. So in this case, you can see that new version has a higher number of crashes compared to our previous versions. And based on that, we can work out, similar with our other applications as well, do we actually continue rolling out a version or not? If not, then we can halt that, and then we're not going to impact those staff with that crashing type of issue. Okay, I'll just jump back over to here. So what I could do now is I'll jump into our more detailed dashboards. So Nextlink has a detailed dashboard library where you can see here we've got various dashboards within our Nextlink platform, and these are all extended using library packs. So library packs are additional features and functionality released by Nextlink regularly, and they can focus on specific use cases. In this case, I'll just start with the digital experience score, but I'll touch on a couple of others. So our digital experience score dashboard here gives us a more detailed breakdown from what we saw in the Experience Optimization Hub. We can see a trend over time. How has our DEX score been performing? You can see it's going upwards, which is great. We can identify which of our subscores are the weakest. In this case, our device and employee sentiment areas are the ones we focus on. We also get a breakdown on working style here in more detail. So we can see what's our score for our office-based workers versus our remotely connected workers. And that's really critical at the moment when we've got a push for staff to come back to the office, but we still see a lot of people still want to work remotely. And key to that is being able to provide the same level of service, doesn't matter where the staff are located. We want them to have a great digital experience because that's going to impact the productivity and the bottom line of the organization. We also get a breakdown by location, so we can base this on your organization structure. So we can then see a digital experience score for each of the different locations, and we can actually drill down into more detail to see, is one office location performing better than others or not? Similarly, we can also look at things like virtualization type. So if you're having a Citrix or a VMware environment, how are those devices performing? Do staff using VDIs get a better experience than physical devices? If not, what do we need to do to actually improve that? And then within this dashboard, we have a breakdown of our business applications, and the key applications that you define in your organization that you want to be able to monitor via the DEX score. So you can see here, we get a breakdown of those. Okay, I'll jump into the home networking dashboards now, because this one will give us insight into how devices are performing for our remotely based workers. So with our home networking library pack, we can identify how the performance is for people who are working remotely. What's their internet connection speed like? And we use our remote actions to gather data from the devices. So we look at things like the internet connection speed, how long it will take to download a sample file, what's their Wi-Fi signal strength like. And using this data, we can then quantify and work out what are the ones we need to improve. So like I mentioned earlier, if they've got a poor Wi-Fi signal strength, we can suggest to the user, can you move closer to your router, your access point? If their internet connection speed is the issue, we might find out that they're running off a 4G hotspot off their phone. We can then suggest to them, can you go and use a wired connection instead off the NBN? So we can communicate to our users via engaged campaigns. That way, rather than getting missed in their inbox, we can send them that targeted campaign. It'll pop up in the bottom right of the screen, which I'll show shortly, and they can be advised and given feedback as to what they can do to improve their performance. So I'll just jump into our Finder now. Our Finder is our detailed investigation tool, and I'll just run through a couple of examples. So one example is for a service desk. Quite often, a ticket will come through, they call up a user. By the time they speak to the end user, the issue is resolved. What they can actually do is using Nextlink, they can get some detailed information as to what's been happening with the user's device before they even speak to them. That way, they're not taking up the user's time, and they can get some background context before they actually have to go and gather that information. So I don't even need to know the name of the user. I can type in their username here or their name, click on their name here in our search window, and then we get a list of devices they've logged onto recently. So I'll quickly look at this device here because we can see it's got a warning against it. And this gives a timeline view of their device. So we can see over the recent period what's actually been happening with their machine. This particular user said, my computer's been running really slow recently. I'm not sure why. It's impacting my ability to work productively. So can you look into this? So we can actually go back in time and see what's been happening on the device. Things like, are there periods of high resource utilization? Have there been new applications installed? Do they have application crashes? So I'll just go back and we can see, we'll have a look here. We can see when the memory usage starts. So I'll just go back, I'll forward it 1 week. We can see the high memory usage just started here. And it's an application called MarkT. Because quite often in a large IT department, the service desk won't know what new updates are being deployed to devices. So they'd have to contact the application team. Rather than having to do that, they can come into here into the next thing, into the timeline view and work out what's actually happened to the device. So we can see just before this high memory usage started, a new version of MarkT was deployed to the machines. So what they can then do is, rather than having to call the user and get more information, they can escalate this issue directly to the application team and advise them. We can see we've got high memory usage issues with your application. What's been done recently? Can we go and resolve this? The application team can then roll out a newer version that resolves that issue. And the services engineer can have a look here in the Finder and work out, have they actually done that? Let's keep an eye on when the memory usage drops. And we can see around this date, the memory usage was still high, but after that, it's no longer. Soon after that last high memory usage, we can see a new version of MarkT was deployed, and that's actually resolved the issue. So you can see by doing this, it means we cut out the time of having to go get further information from the end user. We don't want to take up their time because they've already put some details in the ticket. We can see it all via a timeline view, and it means that regardless of whether the user's online or offline, we can see all this data here. Another area we can use Nextlink is around checklists. So we can create checklists that are focused on specific job roles, and that can contain some content that's really specific for that job role, where they can triage an issue and work out, can I resolve this myself or do I escalate it to another team? So this example one here is a level 1 checklist. You can see it's all color coded. We have scores from 0 to 10 to identify whether something's healthy or not. And so if a user called up and said, my device is running really slow, we can see here, it's been a long since they've restarted their machine. So what we can actually do is trigger a remote action on their device. They'll get a pop-up campaign asking them to restart their device, and that should improve their performance. If we saw things like their antivirus wasn't up to date, we can trigger a remote action here to force an antivirus update. And all this is without connecting to the user's device. We don't need any remote control. So we cut out the time for those home users where they normally need to VPN into the network for us to be able to remote control their machine. That means we can just notify the user after we've actually fixed the issue that your issue is resolved now, and we've actually fixed the issue in a shorter time than would traditionally take. So we end up with happy users, they're more productive and they're more engaged because they're not held up by IT issues. I'll just show one example of a campaign. So with the return to the office in the next few months, particularly here in Australia, we need to get some information from our end users as to how they feel about coming back to the office. So we can use our campaigns to gather that feedback rather than creating our traditional email and browser-based surveys. And a campaign might look something like this. It'll just be a short message they'll see at the bottom right of their screen where they'll choose, I want to take the survey now. We can ask them where they're working prior to the working from home mandate. Might say full-time in the office. And we can ask them, do they need assistance on their first day back from IT? That way we can plan around that. We can ask them, did they take any equipment from the office to home so they could work from home? And how often do they want to be in the office? So that way HR and IT can actually plan, do we have the right amount of office space? How many people are we going to need from IT support and so on? And also, what equipment do they need in the office? So with these engaged campaigns, we get all this feedback compiled within Nextlink, and it allows us to centrally view and analyze that data, dashboard on that data, so we can report on that much quicker than it would be by a traditional email survey. Just be mindful of time. I think I'll cut to the finish now, Alistair. So yeah, we'll hand back over to you.
Great, thanks, Jason. Look, that's a great demo, and look, I know you probably could have gone on for another hour, time permitting, but really do appreciate you sharing that with our attendees. So we've got 3 or 4 minutes left of the session today, and we have had a number of questions come in. So I think what I'll do now is just move over to a couple of the questions, and Jason, Scott, if you can be ready to take these, that'd be great. So the first question we've had come in, and I'll read it out to everyone, is Alistair, government departments here get very sensitive about data leaving the country. As your service is a cloud-only service, where is the data stored? Look, I'll take that one. So yeah, look, it's a great question, and we're obviously very aware of sort of issues around data sovereignty and data location. So in Australia, we are fortunate that our primary and backup DCs are hosted in Australia. So for Australian accounts, all of their data would reside in Australia. For global customers, we do actually have sort of global operations, and we have different data centers globally, so customers can actually choose where their data is going to reside. So I hope that's answered the question for that one. We have another question here regarding sort of the cost of Nexthink and whether or not it can help actually reduce operating costs. So Scott, maybe I can pass that one over to you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Alistair. So I'll probably just add a little bit to your last question. Also, one of the government areas they also ask is about encryption. So we also have the data encrypted at storage and also data in motion. So that's usually another question that comes up when talking about government data within the country. In terms of the return on investment for Nexthink, what we do is we usually benchmark with customers. So we usually work with them to see, we do a business value assessment, which can actually highlight some of the impact areas of return on investment. And then we kind of go back and revisit the customer after they've implemented. And people like Origin, as an example, have gone above and beyond the usage which it was initially purchased for, to the point where we've actually got some of our business value consultants helping Origin review the actual benefits, the extra benefits they're receiving for a cost-saving perspective. But things like the integration to your service management processes to reduce tickets. You've got transformational projects. So you saw Jason at the start with the digital experience score. So you can actually benchmark and see, because digital transformation projects, as an example, you can benchmark and then test and make sure that those projects are going out correctly. The end users are getting a good experience, because there's nothing worse than rolling out a multi-million-dollar, digital transformation project and the end users really dislike it. So, there's lots of actual cost savings. Working with one other customer, they saw a return of investment within 6 months. So, we're seeing some great returns for our customers when they invest in Nexthink. I hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks, Scott. I think we've got 1 minute left. So very quick question, I think maybe for you, Jason. I think there's a question around, and I'm going to paraphrase, but a question around, how much effort is required to sort of manage and maintain Nexthink. So I'm just wondering, is this something that customers have to take on board? What kind of options, are available for customers in that space?
Yeah, there's several options. So we can provide a fully managed service where the maintenance administration is complete to Vertec. And so we'll even go to the level of creating accounts, or a customer may decide they want to look after themselves. In terms of the platform, it is very low administration. It's really the bulk of your data, the time is going to be spent analyzing data. And so then identifying how you can actually improve your IT performance. So yeah, for customers that don't want the overhead of looking after Nexthink, they can use Vertec for a fully managed service, and we'll take care of that for them.
Okay, that's great. Well, look, for our attendees, that really does bring us up towards the end of the session today. So, look, I'd really like to thank Jason. Thank you for doing the demo. Scott, really appreciate you joining the call and sharing that insight in the question at the end there. And really just a final point to say that, please do reach out to Jason. His details are on the screen, salesops@vertec.com.au. And they'd be more than happy to talk to you around running a POC or a proof of value to understand how Nexthink can help you and how you can better support your users in a hybrid environment. So with that, I'd like to just thank all of you for making time to join the session today. Thank you much for everyone who participated in the session and to the team who helped set this up today. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.